Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third blog. This is our audio blog on structuralism and mythology. And the question is, what is your mythology? And this is a little challenging because it jumps around a little bit, so I hope I hold your attention long enough to keep it to the end. In this one, we really are questioning what the mythology is around us. And if you're asking the question, why is mythology involved with what we're doing? That's a fair question. And what's that? You feel that mythology went away with the Greek and Roman gods? Perhaps that is true. Zeus is certainly no longer that relevant. But consider, just for a moment, that mythology is still a thing and it's happening all around you. And this mythology that we've been working with, it's really a simplified version of how things, the why and how of things work. And they were invented so that we could go about doing the business that we do and building a manageable society. I mean, how else could you possibly explain that a storm at sea swallowed up your ship? Could you possibly accept this is a random act of nature? No, that would be way too complex, and you would feel like you could do nothing about it. If that were true, we can't control it. We've just realistically just pissed off Poseidon in some way, and we need to make this up to him. Had we not pissed him off, my ship wouldn't have been swallowed, my crew wouldn't have been killed. I obviously was saved for some reason, so there's something I have to do about it. And it seems that we have this need to feel empowered to do something at all times, to be active in the face of this random universe, while believing there is someone in charge of it. So mythology did just that, and still does that same kind of thing today. It gives order and structure in a fairly chaotic existence, and it gives us some sense that someone is in charge of this nonsense. And to get a greater insight into this, I ask you to go visit the guy I think is the greatest digester and resharer of philosophy on the planet, and I mean no hyperbole in that whatsoever, Stephen West. If ever you were a fan of philosophy, then he will do what very few professors have done well. He's going to make philosophy real, and he's going to do it far better than I could. So I ask you to take a moment and listen to Steve and share his thoughts and actually the study of how mythology still lives around us and how structuralists have found a way to better understand it and actually better understand pretty much anything through structuralism. So take a listen. The link is right there on this blog page. Go take a listen and come back to us. So for now, I'll assume that you just did that and you now know everything about structuralists and mythology. So let's put that in the back burner, believe it or not, for just a second. Own that thought and the possibility that mythology is all around us in some way. All right? I promise we'll get back and somehow we'll connect mythology to education, to creativity, and all that in just a minute. Right? But now we need to look to Ferdinand de Saussure and his work in semiotics, or the study of signs. Guess what? To get you there, you probably ought to listen to something on semiotics, and I put the link in there as well. But if you didn't, let's just shrink this thing up as much as I can, and I'm in no way going to do this justice. We have to understand this. The study of semiotics is the idea of words functioning as signs. These signs are all around us, ways that we communicate meaning in some way. These are signs. Stop sign, sure. But a sign like me giving you the finger, that's a sign, sure. But words are probably the most common use of signs that we use. And this whole study is called semiotics. And people have found that we study semiotics, again, like words, that we can understand the structure. It was through structural linguistics that we came up with structuralism, that we came up with the idea, they came up with structuralists, that a way of understanding that there's a structure to all things. And first of all, there's a structure to language. Because let's be clear, language is a complex thing, and we have to work hard to understand it. If we don't work hard to understand it, then we'll be slaves to the meaning of those words, as that we have to accept them as true. All words that this person says are true. And quickly, it really doesn't take long to grasp that most words have different meanings. Those are historical meanings, cultural meanings, personal meanings, depending on how, when, and why these words are used. And that's just a word. Take a word like justice. Oh my goodness, how was the word justice used? 1,000 years ago, what did justice mean? Not something, it would have been complicated. Oh, actually, it might have been fairly simple, but controlled. How about integrity? You think that's the same for everybody? Is integrity the same in every country and everywhere? How about the word fair? Is that fair? What does fair mean back in, let's say even now? Let's go back to the 1950s in America. Is that the word fair the right word? So You can't just say words have simple meanings. We can, but we have to understand their structure built into them. It's not that easy. It's not until we add syntax and stylistics and that we get some of the real meaning to these words. We got to put them in context of some sort. Or to the point of this discussion, it's not until we add structure around words like COW, like cow, if you listen to the podcast, to give it real meaning. Yeah, that's a nice animal who's out there grazing. I love cows. They give me peace by just looking at them. But there's more to COW, three little letters put together, than just that word cow. The word, the cow beast itself means something in our country, certainly different than it does in India. So now that we realize there's structure to language, and language surrounds all of us every day, and this gives meaning to what we do, and we can begin to understand several things. We study that structure, and we can predict things based on what we understand about that structure. So welcome to the world of structuralists, right? And it all began with linguistics. Understand words, understand that around words there is structure, and you can understand that there's structure in everything outside of that as well. It seems that we create structure around things and impose a narrow set of rules so that we can understand it. Starting to sound a little bit like mythology. We create a narrow set of understanding so that we can keep moving forward. We have to. But we know that this topic, any topic, can be studied, analyzed, predicted, in application, even manipulated. It turns out that if we don't have structure that conforms to how we understand and function, then it's not sustainable. It's not a sustainable structure. It's just chaos. We as humans create fairly narrow structures so we can all play in that playground together without getting hurt. We can all apply the structuralist thinking. We can apply this thinking to painting, music, economics, philosophy, psychology, history, and yes, education and creative systems. We start to see structures. They're like fingerprints left behind when humans actually try and make sense of something. We can see that structure when they conform it to something that's simple so that we can understand. We can understand when we just use this simple structure that there's more to it than just that. Just like the word cow, that there's more to it than that. Just like the word justice, that is a simple word, but it is not a simple understanding. And when people add meaning around it, we can study that structure. So let's get personal. Let's take you and me, for example. Maybe being you is just you in relation to who you are not within that structure, as I said in the podcast. Just like cow isn't a cat. That's a simple understanding of what a cow is. It's not that. And just as Larry is not Freddy, we're applying these narrow structures that we can understand. That narrow structure is, okay, it's not that, so it's this. You are just a single instantiation of a culture that is structured in a way that we can understand it. All right, that was a bit much and a bit chaotic, probably. But let's get back to Zeus. Roland Barthes, the hero of structuralists, believes that we create mythologies which have hidden secondary stories inside of them that keep feeding the gods at the surface level to keep our world working because they're simple to understand. Think of how you see the creativity. If you think about creativity, who comes to mind? A genius? Probably. Da Vinci? Probably. Mozart? Yeah, definitely. That's just the way it is. And we think of these geniuses as just the way it is. Well, guess what we did? We just created a new god. And to be clear, the goal is I don't want you to do away with your gods in any way. It doesn't matter with these guys being considered geniuses. That's fantastic. Or if you still believe in Zeus, have at it. We obviously need these things to make life understandable. It might just be that it's impossible to live without them. Really, we can't do away with them. The real goal here isn't to do away with mythology. It's to demystify that mythology and all the culture that surrounds you. Most mythology has someone or something to look at who has all sorts of powers. And if we look toward this person and appeasing that person or working toward that image, then we can keep moving. And so I'm asking that in this idea that we challenge the structures around us. Who are our gods? Who are the structures? And what are the structures that built them that we try and understand? And we pull apart to see if we need them at all. Did we need Zeus? Or did we just need science to help get us through that? So how does it apply to creativity? Quickly. Creativity is one of those messy topics that needs structure to make sense of it, right? We all think we're creative or not creative. It seems like one of those binary opposition moments. I am creative or you're not. Truly, this is not. This is not true. So we began to accept the mythology of creativity, right? Who holds providence over this field? For example, we've been taken from history to nature about genius and geniuses. We've been fed this mythology that a genius is something that of the geniuses who are just different from the rest of us, that they're genetically different from the rest of us. And it may be true. I don't know. Maybe Van Gogh was genetically different than I was. He's certainly different, obviously, because we're all different genetically. But maybe he had some tracker in him that made things more likely for him to paint. Well, the truth is that yes, yeah, we're genetically different, and I do certainly have different genetics. But this understanding of creativity as a cultural norm is mythology in general. To get specific, let's turn to Csikszentmihalyi, who at least challenges this in some way similar to the way structuralists have done. He asks how creativity really moves throughout a culture. It wasn't just a matter of, hey, this is how creativity is. He actually broke it down. He took the structuralist role and said that let's look at where the components of it and see if it really is something we can study. And he found out there is a way to study it. And he would have us question the role of the individuals in the system. Who are the gatekeepers in the system? And how can we affect the players that are in this game? In doing this, Csikszentmihalyi helped us question the mythology of our system. He didn't ask us to destroy the system and move on. No. He said, get an understanding of it. See what part we can influence along the way. Now, do me a favor. Think about the educational system we're in. Think about the mythology we've created around it. What a school has to look like. Who are the gods? Let's be honest. We've created ourselves as gods in this situation. Why did we have to create those gods? Was it for students so they had someone to turn to help keep things narrowly straight? And if not, and I'm not saying we have to destroy that mythology, but how do we get students, how do we get learning to be something where they're active participants in it? So what is the mythology of education? Who are the gods, and do we need them? And what would happen if we demystified this system for others? And finally, on a thought experiment, if you could erase, let's say you could erase the superstructure that is the educational reality as we know it, and we could create a learning environment where we took Zeus out of the picture. That this didn't happen because Zeus was angry or I got an F on this paper because my teacher didn't understand it this way. And we just handed that power over to students. What would happen? So in your response, challenge whether we're working with the narrow parameters to say we do this because of this. I just ask that you challenge them. If you have to refer to blog number 1 on Thus Spoke Zarathustra, do that. Just give it a minute. So anyway, thank you. I hope this came back together, and thank you for listening, and I look forward to seeing your comments.